So if you haven't heard about this update, you're not alone, right? In fact, when I started digging into this topic, I was actually shocked that there was such a lack of content and information around this particular topic. So if you're not aware, let's go ahead and get you up to speed. So over the last several months, Meta has been doing a lot of major updates with regards to their algorithm, right? And I know we hear that a lot, right? There's always updates to the algorithm and so on and so forth. But this is probably one of the most consequential or impactful updates that I've seen in over 10 years of running ads. Yeah, the iOS 14 update was pretty catastrophic, but this is different. This actually takes everything that we've learned about Facebook ads and everything that we normally have done over the last several years in order to maintain performance is completely thrown out the window. It's a completely new look. It's a completely new expectation and strategy. And so since there is such a lack of content around it, and I wanted to share this with a handful of people that I'm, closely connected with and so on, in the hopes that it helps them understand what to do moving forward. So hopefully you find some value in this video. So Meta Andromeda, that's the update that they released recently. There's a couple of articles here that I linked to. I'll be honest with you, I took a look at them and read through them. They're quite technical and very confusing, but I will link to them. So if you have any questions about that or want the links, definitely drop a comment below and I'll drop the links to you so you can check it out. One of the things I did pull is this fancy little GIF that we have in front of us right here. And so essentially what this is showing in a very technical way is that what they're saying is that basically the way the new algorithm is going to work is that essentially you have your entire pool of creatives over here, right? This is your ad account. And so what happens is as you deliver your ads, right, there's this personalized ad retrieval, which is basically a combination of their algorithm, AI, and so on. And so it's going to say, okay, based upon what we know and all of these different ads that you've shared with us, we're going to put those into the auction and we're going to deliver those to people based upon where we think they're most likely going to need those creatives based upon where they're at in the funnel. So this middle portion of this graphic is like the sales funnel, right, or the customer journey. And so it's going to pick and choose based upon all these different ad creatives that you've developed. And it's going to figure out where to put those based upon the different ad candidate and what they need to see within their own customer experience. So I know this kind of bleeds out at the end, but you guys get the concept, right? And so I'll break this down to actually what this looks like in the ad account because it's actually fundamentally simple in its architecture, but the impact is still to be determined. And that's the thing. I've started running some tests on this personally. It's still early to tell. So I'd love to know if your folks that are running ads or your media buyer, if they're adopting the strategy or they're testing it. I would love to see or hear any sort of feedback that you guys have. The early tests that I've seen from other folks, it's pretty positive. And it's one of those things where I think it's going to be slow to evolve and develop, but I cannot express enough that this is the way that the platform is going. Whether or not people are getting immediate results is completely irrelevant. That's usually what happens with Meta anyway, is they'll release an update. They'll expect everybody to do X, Y, or Z, and then they do, and they don't get performance until like several months down the line when the update or the algorithm catches up with them. That's usually the way that it rolls out. It's kind of a phased approach. So just because you test it right now doesn't necessarily mean anything, but this is the transformational shift that the platform is going to happen moving forward. That is a guarantee. This isn't just a beta test. This is the next evolution of the platform. In fact, if you guys have heard in the news over the last several months, you've heard that Meta has been investing hundreds of billions of dollars in AI. I think the big misconception is that, they're building a chat GPT to compete against OpenAI or something like that. I don't think that's the case. I think actually what they were doing is using the ability of AI to further evolve their platform, because the thing that is most powerful and most profitable for them is their user base. And so what they want to do is they want to control their user experience as much as they possibly can. And so one of the biggest impacts to that has always been the advertising, right? The advertising side of it. This actually eliminates a lot of that because they're reducing the control that we as advertisers and as media buyers have, and they're basically taking control over it themselves to guide based upon their information and their ideas of what the customer most or best needs in order to deliver the result that you want. I know it sounds like it's either going to be awesome or it's going to be tragic. I have no idea yet, but this is where we're at, folks. So anyway, that's sort of the overall summary. But let's take a look at what this actually looks like inside of your ad account. So what they're telling you is that essentially you have a CBO campaign. You have a single campaign, which is a CBO, which is a campaign budget optimization. So no fancy settings, nothing there, just a CBO campaign. And then also you're going to have one singular ad set. That's it. No targeting, no manual settings, nothing at the ad set level, just straight up broad targeting and no additional settings or controls like bid cap, cost controls, audiences, demographics, nothing. Literally just completely untouched, just the way that it defaults naturally, and that's it, right? And then within that ad set, you're going to have a series of 10 and actually it's more like 8, but according to their documentation, it's 10 different ads based upon different content types, right? So you're going to have all these UGC, us versus them, face to camera, founder story, product demo, customer testimonials, features and benefits, whitelisting, positioning test, and then AI, right? So essentially it's like the top 8, like for whitelisting on up, but you get the idea. And here's just a summary of what these different types are. So if you want to pause the video and read through those, then definitely have at it. But essentially the way that the ad set is structured is that you have 2, maybe 3 different versions of each ad within the ad set, and that's it. So in this example, you have 2 UGC ads that are competing against one another, 2 us versus them ads that are competing against one another. So according to them, the UGC ad is not going to compete with the founder story ad. The founder story ad is not going to compete with the product demo, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. They're saying that based upon their algorithm, they're predicting that the UGC will compete against the UGC. And so ultimately, you'll be able to A/B test and find the winner, and then introduce a new version later on to iterate and test and optimize and so on. But ultimately, those UGC ads are competing against themselves, and so on and so forth, which is wild if you think about it. Like I said, early test for us is still, it's not necessarily statistically significant at this point in time. So it's still interesting to see how that plays out, but it's wild to think that this is where they're at. And so what they're telling you is basically where they're at with their algorithm and where they're at with their AI advancements is they believe that they know based upon each individual user, which type of ad that consumer needs to see and when in the customer buying experience, that they need to see those ads in order to elicit a conversion. That's wild, folks. Like if you realize like the way ads used to run is like you would sort of build that customer journey, that funnel yourself, right? So you'd run top of funnel, cold traffic ads. You might have a middle layer, warm audience retargeting. Then you'd have a bottom of funnel remarketing, right? Where you're like add to cart, abandoned carts, so on and so forth, right? You get the idea. So you would manually build that customer experience based upon segmentation and different creative testing and so on and so forth, right? Different layering. That's all gone. So as a media buyer, this is transformational because that's where we got paid the dollars over the years to do it, right? Because we knew what all those different segments are. We knew how to, use the different features and benefits or features and settings within the platform, right? Like bid cap, cost control, so on and so forth, in order to maximize conversions and lower, CPAs and so on. What they're telling us, folks, with that right here, that's all out the window. So as a media buyer, as an agency, as a company that's running ads, you have to shift your focus now and go away from hacking the system or hacking the algorithm to being a content engine agency. You have to understand how to build and how to create high converting UGC content, how to build and test high converting us versus them, face to camera content, founder story, product demos, and so on. So really, folks, media buying is more a creative agency. And that pains me to say that, right? Because I've never been the creative type. I've always been focused on the media buying component, but really this is where it's going, right? This is where changes are happening. And it is literally the single biggest impact and change I've seen in over 10 years of doing this. So this is where it's at, folks. And again, the reason why I wanted to record this video is because honestly, like I said at the beginning, there's such a lack of content and information around this topic that I just wanted to share my insights with the people closest to me, and hopefully it helps. If your media buyer knows about this change, then that's awesome. Have a discussion with them on what that means. If they don't, then share this video with them. I would love to have a conversation with them and help them get up to speed with where things are at. But ultimately, if you're doing it yourself and need help, let me know also. But like I said, I just wanted to share this video because again, there's such a lack of information. And if you're doing the things the way that you've been doing them that got you this far, moving forward, it is not going to work anymore. You have to make a change. So the things that got you here are not going to get you to the next level. That is a guarantee. So anyway, I wanted to create this video. I wanted to share it with you folks. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help. Look forward to chatting with you.